Hello, and a warm welcome to everyone joining us today. A simple question stands at the heart of the session. Why does patient data keep getting exposed? Even when our teams are technically compliant with security standards, even when we diligently check all the boxes and complete all the required trainings. The gap between compliance and true security seems to continue to widen. In reality, security training stops at the bare minimum. It prepares us for an audit, but not necessarily for an attack. Today, we will hear about a paradigm shift. This session is about rebuilding our approach to security training, moving beyond the noise of compliance to focus on real world threats that our teams actually face every day, from critical electronic health record vulnerabilities to the complex challenges of insider risk. Leading us through this topic is Abhay Bhargav, a security leader and a published author of definitive guides on security and compliance. More than that, he's a passionate technologist who has architected revolutionary platforms for threat modeling, security training, you name it. He is a sought after speaker at global industry events like OWASP and Black Hat. Tonight is our opportunity to learn from a true expert on how to build the most resilient defense mechanism you have, a true human firewall. Please join me in giving a very warm welcome to Abhay Bhargav.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Ganga. Uh, Thanks for that introduction, and appreciate the thoughts around the healthcare security side of the fence that we've been dealing with quite a bit at our company as well, as you know. And this talk basically talks about what we've learned from that and how we can go about actually uh, solving some of these security challenges through security training. So let me get into it. Let's not wait too long. Without further ado, I'm going to get into it, and then, of course, we're going to keep this an interactive session. So, Ganga, if you have any points of discussion, or if people bring up discussion points during the session, please feel free to bring it to me as we get into it. So, with that, I'm going to start the session. I'm going to start presenting my screen, and just give me a second while I start sharing my screen. For some reason, Google Slides has decided that loading my screen is not top priority today. Um, all right, looks like okay, we've got it. Perfect. So, what we're going to be doing today is we're going to be looking at security training and how healthcare can specifically benefit from this, right? The healthcare sector. Now, a lot of us know healthcare as just hospitals or hospital adjacent institutions, but there are a whole bunch of other entities that are involved in healthcare. It could be medical insurance, it could be medical devices, medical equipment, pharmaceutical companies, it could be healthcare intermediaries, healthcare service providers. There are so many different types of folks who are involved in this process. So that is something that you must understand, and we are going to look at how security training can impact the healthcare sector in general, right? So let's get into it and start talking about what are the challenges and of course the opportunities that exist. Before that, a quick introduction of myself. My name is Abhay. For those of you who don't know, I am the founder and head of research at AppSecEngineer, which is our training platform. Now, AppSecEngineer is used by some of the world's largest companies to train through hands-on means their technology staff, their product engineering team, the security engineering team on various security subjects, right? Application security, cloud security, DevSecOps, threat modeling, all of the stuff that make up a very robust product security practice is something you can learn on AppSec Engineer. We have certifications, we have all of that stuff. We have a lot of training, we have a lot of enterprise capabilities that help you manage training rollouts, compliance, and so on through the platform. So that is AppSec Engineer. Outside of that, I run a services company called V45. And more recently, after AI happened, I've been a passionate threat modeler. And one of the things that I've built more recently is another product around security design review called security-review.ai. And it's been a very interesting journey so far. And I'm really looking forward to building that out in a big way as well. Outside of this, I train at some of the world's largest events like Black Hat, DEF CON, so on. In fact, I'm waiting on my DEF CON workshop proposal. I've been told that I'm in the final consideration. Hopefully, they select me. Fingers crossed. But this would be the fourth time I'll be training at DEF CON, perhaps the eighth time I'll be training at Black Hat. I'm really looking forward to it in the next month or so. Outside of this, more recently, I became a member of the Forbes Technology Council, and I've written a couple of books on application security. So this is me, and I've had a front row seat for most of the stuff that's been happening in the AppSec world, and something that I've been working on for a while now. So this is who I am. Now, in this talk today, and we're going to keep it relatively tight. We're going to focus on some of the key things and then get into it. This is going to be more a exploratory session on a sector. And when you're talking about a sector, you need to kind of explore some of the challenges of that sector and how certain security solutions can help with that sector, right? So we're going to look at that. We are also going to look at the element of compliance, which is going to be a very important element. Now, whenever you're dealing with sectors like healthcare and fintech and banking and insurance, they are heavily regulated spaces. Now, when you're dealing with heavily regulated spaces, you need to understand that they come with a lot of compliance requirements. Their security is incredibly influenced by compliance. And because of that, their security programs can either do extremely well, some of them do extremely well, some of them are literally there to just check off a box. So that is the problem with a lot of these programs as well. So we're going to look at all of this stuff around the healthcare sector today, and of course, we're going to look at how security training can help. And just in my typical style, I'm going to use a lot of mind maps and very visual tools to kind of get my point across, especially the latter part of this presentation, and make my point. Now, if you look at the healthcare breach stats, they are actually quite alarming. I saw these as I was researching this space, and I realized that the healthcare breaches are pretty crazy in terms of the sheer numbers of it, right? Just for instance, in 2024, I saw that there were about 276 million records that were breached. And outside of this, in the Verizon data breach and incident response report, there were 1,710 security incidents with 1,542 confirmed data disclosures in the healthcare sector alone, which is pretty huge if you look at and this is, of course, largely US. I think the Verizon report is US focused. So this is not even counting global or EU or Asia, all of these places. Just in the US alone, this is a pretty huge number. Again, the IBM cost of data breach report average, again, at the healthcare side, average $9.7 million per incident. This actually apparently is a larger number. I was reading somewhere that it's more like 11.5 million, not 9.7 million, which is a massive number, right? Because per incident, if this is the kind of loss you're going to have, and you have multiple incidents, depending on this kind of company you're dealing with, you are dealing with a huge amount of breach. Yeah, this was the stat that kind of alarmed me, because this number is huge. This is pretty much the population of the entire United States, right? 276 million records breached in 2024 alone, which means that the number of breached records from healthcare, again, this is not counting other sectors. This is just healthcare records that were breached. It's 276 million, of which one provider has had 190 million record breach in 2024. So it is the scale of healthcare security, or the healthcare security breach side, is huge. And we've been seeing this. In fact, many of our new customers are entirely from the healthcare sector. There could be healthcare insurance providers who are massive, they have massive IT deployments, massive application deployments, or they could be on the healthcare tech side, or they could be directly healthcare providers themselves. So we've been seeing a lot of these people come to us and say that, look, we are looking for something to help us address this problem proactively, because we've not been able to. We've deployed tools, we've added a ton of tooling to our application security practice or our security organization, but those tools have really not solved this problem for us. So maybe proactiveness will solve it, and in many cases it has resulted in massive productivity gains, as well as meaningful reduction in vulnerabilities, right? Authorization and access control issues, and injection flaws and so on. So, and one of the things that you might not have considered is that healthcare also include medical devices, and medical devices obviously are life and death. As I mean, just like every other thing in the healthcare industry, the medical devices sector is life and death. This literally means that these devices are connected, or they are running inside of people. They're connected to people's bodies, and or they may be connected to other equipment that the hospital absolutely needs for certain things that they do, for certain diagnostic things that they do. And apparently, about 162 security vulnerabilities were identified in popular medical devices, which is, again, pretty alarming, because this is something that we would expect to have robust and, I don't use this word lightly, but bulletproof security mechanisms in place to deal with this. But clearly, it's not the case. So it is a sector that is definitely dealing with some pretty serious security issues and continues to deal with these serious security issues. Now, the landscape also is not obviously very easy to deal with, because on the one hand, you have a ton of legacy tech, right? Healthcare applications are old. Some of them have been built in the 80s, or even earlier than that, maybe. But definitely, I know for a fact that some of the customers I deal with, they have tech from the 80s. So they have a ton of legacy tech, and on top of that, they've just added a whole bunch of new things to it, right? Or that can interface with it, or integrate with it, or in some way operate within the same confines as that. Now, this could be a medical device, or it could be Internet of Medical Things, or with cloud. And a lot of them are now multi-cloud. In fact, most of our customers in the healthcare space are multi-cloud today. They are on AWS, they're on Azure, some of them are Google, some of them on Oracle Cloud. They really are truly multi-cloud today, simply because they have to. They've started realizing that they can shift a lot of workloads to the cloud, and save some money, also unlock some productivity gains from the cloud. So this has become a pretty huge area of investment for the healthcare sector. And they also have, again, a very complicated ecosystem, right? They have the cloud, they have their devices, they also have a lot of commercial off-the-shelf software. I call that COTS, of course. It's a common acronym, as well as a ton of custom-built stuff on top of it, right? So, in fact, recently I was speaking to one of our customers who is in the healthcare insurance space, and they have nearly 20,000 people in their IT organization, which is this is a huge company that we're dealing with, and they're using AppSecEngineer to train most of their IT organization. And I said, what are the languages that you see predominantly used within your organization? And their answer to that was yes, which means that they literally have everything from JavaScript to Rust to Go to Python to other any other thing. So their IT organization is not only large, it's also diverse, which is very hard to come to grips with, and it's also huge at massive scale. So this is something that the a lot of healthcare organizations are dealing with. I'm not just talking about the large ones; even the small ones have, or the mid-sized ones have these specific challenges, right? So that's something that you'll see. Yeah. So, like I said, right, healthcare is not just it's not just hospitals. It's all of these things: health insurance, health tech, healthcare IT and software, medical device, medical equipment providers. All of these things, all of these folks, all of these companies make up the healthcare sector. And this is really one of those things that is surprising, because all of these people, while they have some similar requirements, they also have wildly different security requirements. So, for instance, medical device, a lot of our customers are in they are medical device manufacturers, and they are essentially super focused on the threat modeling and security design, secure by design piece. Because for them, it's not only a good to have, but it's an existential thing. Simply because without a threat model, without a secure by design plan, without an S-bomb, without some supply chain security, they cannot even go to market. They have regulations from the FDA, and even in the EU. This is also extending to the EU, by the way. So it's not just FDA in the US, but also in the EU side of the fence. they have a ton of regulation that they need to follow, and these regulations require prescriptively very specific things that they need to submit, like a threat model, a secure by design plan, a machine readable SBOM, and so on and so forth. So this is a has very prescriptive, very specific requirements, whereas some of these have more HIPAA high tech style requirements, which are mostly risk based, which are also important, but they're not as prescriptive. But at the same time, a violation there would also result in massive penalties. So the landscape is very different. Even though yes, these are also healthcare, and this is also a healthcare company, they have very different requirements, and those different requirements also are necessitated by risk, and they're also necessitated by regulation. So both these things play a very important role in the way security is planned in many of these organizations, right? Or security programs are executed in many of these organizations. So that's something that you'll see. Now, let's talk a little bit about the regulatory landscape here, because I've been talking a little bit about the compliances. And like I said, compliance is a huge driver when it comes to healthcare. And it becomes a very, very important thing to think about when it comes to healthcare. So, one is, of course, HIPAA. All of us have heard of HIPAA. We probably know about HIPAA. HIPAA has very specific security, privacy, and breach notification rules, and they require you to have a risk based approach to securing your access to uh, your PHI and EPHI and so on. Now HIPAA requires you to have a risk based approach, which means as soon as somebody uses the term risk based, which it essentially means you need to have a risk assessment practice, you need to have a threat modeling practice, you need to have all of those things in place. And that is something that teams are still not very good at, even in large companies. So teams, especially at the implementation level, still don't implement it very well. Threat modeling, secure design, risk assessment, risk management stuff is something that a lot of teams do not do well. And this is really where a lot of security training can be positively impacted here, right? A lot of the secure training bits really come in from the fact that I should be able to understand how to even think about a risk, or even interpret a risk, or even identify the concept of a risk and how that risk can come to pass within my environment, or within my product landscape, or within this application that I'm working on, right? So this is something that HIPAA requires you to have. So it requires you have to have security, privacy, as well as breach notification, which means that automatically you need to have a security program, you need to have a privacy program, you also need to have a breach notification, incident response, all of that stuff in place. And a lot of that, remember, ties into applications, right? A lot of that ties into the applications you're building, the cloud environments that you're deploying them on, the cloud native environments that you're deploying them on, the third party libraries that you're using, the third party calls that you're using, all of that stuff is a huge, extremely important consideration, right? So that's something that you have to keep in mind. HITECH extends HIPAA rules in order for EPHI and for EPHI access. And here it mandates securing access to EPHI and role-based training. It mandates role-based training. So HITECH, by definition, by if you're following HIPAA rules, you have to again also follow these requirements, which is the requirement to follow these things. So they have actually extended it to have more technical safeguards. So which means having a more detailed risk-based plan, more detailed access control plan, so on and so forth, as well as role-based training. So that's something that they have mandated as part of HITECH. Then, of course, you have the FDA medical device cybersecurity mandates, right? So these are actually I got to know them when we recently had two of our customers who are in the medical device space come to us and say that, hey, you know what? We came to you folks because you are talking a lot about threat modeling, and that is something that we have to do in our space. We have to do threat models. We have to submit threat models. We have to do all of that stuff. So this is why we want to have your training platform, and we want to learn threat modeling. We want to learn, our developers need to learn secure coding, so on and so forth. So threat modeling is a huge part of the FDA requirements here. If you are doing anything in the medical devices space, this is something that you have to keep in mind, and secure by design, which is again very indelibly linked to the whole application development process. Outside of this, you have the IEC 62304, medical device software standards. Again, talking about this is not so much a regulation as much as it is a industry requirement or an industry compliance standard. This is sort of like PCI, but it's not mandated as such, but it's more a standard that I think customers will ask for certain certification requirements you'll have for your medical devices. Again, you will see medical device space having a bunch of regulations in the US, in Europe. I think in Europe they also have broader scope regulation around things like NIST 2 and so on, which is also considered very, very stringent as far as the EU region is concerned. So this is something that mandates. These are the mandates in terms of training and secure software development lifecycle and so on and so forth. Right. So this is something that you'll see quite a bit of in this space, and this is a huge influencing factor in this space as well. Right. So if you look at the product security landscape, and this is something that we excel at here, right? Especially in AppSecEngineer, the product security landscape is something that we focus on extensively. We believe that this is the landscape that is going to define security programs in days to come, months to come, years to come. And this is already making a huge dent. So if you need to consider moving in from thinking about application security to thinking more broadly about product security, simply because everything today has merged in, has become part of product security, right? So you look at all of this really is, and if you look at all the mandates that I spoke of before, the breaches that have happened, the kind of security programs that these companies need to run, they're all linked to this. They're linked to product security initiatives, right? So you have to keep that in mind as you are building out security programs and thinking about training on this. And this is really where the training thing becomes very important, because most of the time we are focused on one of these things, right? Most of the time, if you see security training programs, tends to focus extensively on application security and almost nothing on all of these things. You don't really have security training that addresses the whole scope of the product security problem. And this is the problem, right? So, one, when you're looking at application security, yes, secure coding is critical for reducing flaws in the apps that are handling EPHI or any kind of healthcare data, right? Access control is a huge concern. Today, with the kind of identity providers that you're dealing with, it could be Azure, it could be Okta, it could be what have you, your developers understanding OAuth, OIDC, and modern access control frameworks is very, very important. And this is a very underrated part of the secure coding experience. Most people just tell you how to do SQL injection prevention and stuff like that. But really, what you want to focus on is to learn or to train on these sort of things, which actually give you deep knowledge of OAuth and OIDC and access control protocols and access control frameworks that actually they are using in real life, right? So this is something that a lot of people exclude, and a lot of companies and products exclude. And this is something that we've made a very important part of our program, simply because we believe that having this makes a huge impact to the quality of your security program, because knowing all this gets you to a place where you are much more comfortable with this. And so that's something that you have to keep in mind. And all of these application security requirements are mandates. They are mandates in HIPAA, it's in HITECH. All of these things are clearly mandated as part of all of these things, right? So that is something that you'll see. Secure design and threat modeling. This is something that I already mentioned, which is very, very critical, because uh, again, FDA requirements mandated, HIPAA mandates it. Again, risk analysis, high tech mandates it. So again, secure by design and threat modeling. Now, these two things are very important. And both these things are very, very enmeshed together, because these things, both these concepts are highly tied into each other. If you have a strong practice of threat modeling, if you have a strong culture of threat modeling, and if you can cultivate it in your organizations through security champions and whatnot, then you can create a very active secure by design culture, and you can produce artifacts for it, and you can produce evidenceable results for it. And by producing evidenceable results, what I mean is you can produce evidenceable artifacts, and those artifacts can then result in the downstream effects of your security program actually getting improved, rather than rather than just relying on this whack-a-mole control implementation sort of an approach. So this is something that you must think about very deeply, because the healthcare sector has, not just healthcare, every other sector, right? But especially the healthcare sector has taken this and really run with it in a meaningful way. And this is also happening everywhere else, but healthcare has really made huge developments in this particular space. And this is very important for you to consider in your training program, because your training program, if it doesn't have this, it's not going to really make from a security program implementation perspective. Cloud. Now, the cloud thing is a bit of a new entrant to this whole security training element, because everybody in just looks at a lot of people consider this. In fact, I was talking to a prospective customer the other day, and they were saying, "Oh, yeah, cloud is just where we deploy stuff. So it's just servers and stuff." But and they didn't really think about it as a huge area of security training or even security effort focus, which was shocking to me to begin with. But then when you get into it, when I got into it, when I started explaining, that look, when you're looking at cloud, you are dealing with a massive collection of APIs, and lateral movement on the cloud is very API driven. And your ability to be able to understand cloud security as a completely different construct from what you used to do in the form of perimeter security is a very important thing. So your team needs to understand that as well. So cloud IAM is an extremely important focus area, and that's why in AppSec Engineer, if you see, we cover all three clouds. And the reason we cover all three clouds, all three big clouds, is simply because you are multi-cloud. You are using AWS, you might be using Azure for some applications, you may be able to GCP payloads for some cases. In fact, one of our customers in the healthcare sector has acquired so many companies. All of them are using different clouds, and they've had to now start thinking about how to use cloud security from the perspective of all three clouds, because they have companies that they've acquired, and each of these companies have the workloads running on different clouds. So you have to think about multi-cloud, and you have to think about these things, especially cloud IAM, cloud incident response, and cloud native security audit logging. These are areas that are sorely lacking. Other things you can somehow figure out. It's not that complicated. But with these three, four things, these are, I would say, it should be your focal point for cloud security training, and getting your people aware of this in a way that doesn't bore them. Right. So that's the point. It should not be something that they consider, oh my god, I need to do this. It should be something that they actually find value from, and they can use at their workplace. So that's something that you should think about when it comes to security training for the cloud. Then, of course, DevSecOps. Now, one of the things that I initially thought when it comes to healthcare was that, hey, DevSecOps is something that the healthcare sector is probably not doing much about. And I was exceedingly surprised by the kind of implementations I saw within my own customers in the healthcare space. They could be in the healthcare. Of course, healthcare tech is healthcare startups maybe a little bit ahead of the curve on some things, but even the large enterprise healthcare medical insurance organizations, or healthcare provider organizations, or healthcare service provider organizations, all of them have implemented extensive programs around DevOps, and to a certain extent DevSecOps as well. So in the healthcare space, your security training really needs to extensively focus on supply chain security, which is a huge concern in the healthcare space, simply because your the third party software that you use, the libraries that you use, the kind of supply chain elements you're bringing into your code base become a huge potential liability for your security program. If your if your application can be compromised through a simple library getting compromised, then you run the risk of massive penalties, and even huger reputation issues and financial issues and so on. So this is something that you have to consider when when you're dealing with healthcare stuff, especially supply chain security. This is an area that secrets management again is a problem. Now, healthcare tech, or in the healthcare space or in the healthcare IT space, you are integrating with several systems. Now, you have systems that are applications that you're developing that integrate with several systems, and secrets management becomes a very important thing. So recently uh, we were running in our services company, we were running a pen test against a very large healthcare application. It's a, it's an online application that's used by several healthcare providers. And in that place, what happened was we compromised their application using SSRF on AWS, and through that we were able to gain access to their AWS secret store, and we were able to decrypt one set of secrets, and we realized that that was the secret store for all their apps across all their namespaces across all environments. So they've not done any kind of logical access control over their secrets, which means that all apps could access all secrets at once, which was a huge problem. So this sort of stuff, right, can have a massive downstream impact on your organization, because one application that was doing something not so critical suddenly now became a channel to exploit an extremely critical resource, which is the secrets of the entire application stack that they had across all applications across all environments. So this was a huge thing that we saw. uh, and again, secrets not only extend here, but even into CI/CD. We've seen issues constantly crop up on that side of the fence. So, DevSecOps, supply chain security, secrets management, all of this stuff is very important for you to train your people on, simply because if they understand this well, they will not make the same mistakes again and again. You want to nip it at the bud. See, with training, what you're really doing is you're nipping bad behavior at the bud, right? Rather than trying to always catch it later on, right? You're trying to nip bad behavior at the bud, and instead of trying to constantly implement a ton of tooling to catch it later on. If you can really do a good job of the training, your catching later on gets to be a much lower number, right? It actually becomes much easier to catch things or catch fewer things later on in the cycle. And finally, of course, this is an area that I think is being quite underrated, and it's going to gain a lot of traction, especially with AI coming in. And surprisingly, there is already a bunch of regulation already in this space. So if the FDA already has AI ML security requirements, and not just, it's not specifically security requirements, it's more on the lines of, your the model that you're using, transparency of the model that you're using, and so on and so forth. Now, on top of this, there is also LLM enabled applications that healthcare companies are adding to their applications. Now, recently, again, this was on the medical insurance side, there was this company that we're testing who has like a bunch of chatbots that they've deployed. Now, chatbot in an e-commerce application may not be something that is super critical, but in a healthcare application or in an insurance scenario, that is super critical. It's not only critical because it involves claims and so on and so forth. It's also critical because uh, you don't want that application leaking sensitive data. You don't want that application accessing the chatbot accessing parts of your data set that are privileged information and so on. So this is really one of the big challenges with a lot of healthcare companies, because yes, you want to use AI to make your applications very productive, make your customer experience great, but using AI could literally mean life or death in this case, right? Or the AI, the answers from AI could literally mean life or death. So one of the things that you have to consider with your security training program with healthcare is Gen AI and LLM security, and how practical is it? Because most of the time, and this is something that we've done in AppSecEngineer quite extensively, because what we've done is we've actually provided real world labs to learn from all of this stuff. All of this stuff that I'm talking about, we have real world labs for. But even Gen AI and LLM security, most of our competitors just literally have theoretical, exploration, saying that, oh yeah, this could happen. But yes, how, why, what is how, in what means, what way? how real is the threat. This is one thing that in general. So if you take nothing from this session, please take this as a key takeaway. That one of the things you should remember is with security training, the stakes matter. If you don't communicate the stakes to the people that are getting trained, they will not care about security because they already have 300 things that they're doing. If you can get them to understand the stakes, which means you show them an exploit and then you show them how to secure it, they are going to be in a much better place to actually explore, to understand this concept, more than just understand this concept, actually appreciate it and start to take action that is in the best interest of security. So this is really something that I feel you need to do, and these are the areas that I've been working with. So as in AppSecEngineer, we work with a lot of healthcare companies, from the veterinary side to the medical insurance to the medical devices side. We work with a lot of different companies who are having their entire teams trained on AppSecEngineer. And I see that these are some of the areas that have made a huge impact. And for them, what they do is they do this in a periodic way, multiple times in a year. They come up with ways in which they can actually make this easier for people. So this is something that I really wanted to leave all of you with, in a perspective of how you can get the best value from security training, if you're a healthcare organization or if you're dealing with a healthcare organization. So yeah, that brings me to the end of my talk. Thank you so much, and I hope you found this useful. Thanks for all of you who are on live. I'll be happy to take any questions if there are any. Uh, is there any questions? All right. All right, folks. Thank you so much. Thanks for watching right to the end. And I'll see you in another one of these sessions of ours. Thank you so much and have a good rest of your day.